Saphira, why are you just back there looking like a freaking creeper? Is it because it's Halloween? Oh, there she goes.
There goes that doggy. Happy Halloween, doggy. Hello, everybody.
Alright, get out of here.
Bye. Goodbye.
What's up? My name is Bree. Welcome to my channel, Bree the Womanican. Today, we have a pretty interesting topic that we're going to be discussing. I know the men who watch this video are going to maybe have some words that they would like to share in the comments, so you should do that, definitely. Today, we're going to be talking about the male gaze. Now, you might be wondering, like, what is that, right? Before we get into that, please remember to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, follow me on IG, and I think that's it. That's the whole rigmarole. Yeah, so do that stuff to support my channel. It's a nice, free, easy way to support my channel so I can get more attention from the algorithm, okay? Because I'm just, you know how females is, they just want attention all the time. That's why I'm showing my butt on the thumbnail. I'm not really showing my butt on the thumbnail, I guess. I'm showing my body. But that's what we're gonna talk about today, the male gaze. So, what is the male gaze? Well, many women would describe the male gaze as the reason why they feel the need to look pretty, even in their homes, by themselves, completely alone. Or if they're in a park by themselves, completely alone. Or if they're in a coffee shop by themselves, completely alone. What does that even mean? What does it mean to feel the need to look good all the time? Basically, the male gaze describes a way of viewing women in a way that sexualizes and dehumanizes them. So viewing women as possessions, as objects, and not as people. And in a way, this empowers men while objectifying the women in question. We all want to look attractive to whoever we want to look attractive to, right? Something that I don't want to do over the course of this video is I don't want to confuse anybody. This is not talking about attraction, right? Hopefully I'm able to describe and give proper examples so that you understand where I'm coming from. I feel like I always leave stuff out that I'm like, people know that. Like in my femcel video, I left out the fact that some femcells are like they're born with like physical traits that are like not perceived as, you know, like I left that out of the video because I assumed people knew that I wasn't talking about them, but then a lot of them did not like that I did not talk about that. So I'm gonna try to talk about everything and hopefully you don't get bored and you hear me out, okay? I'm hoping to get a lot of men watching this video because of my thumbnail, so hopefully you came here for the wrong reasons, but you're staying for the right reasons. I believe in you. So, like I was saying, from a young age, we are, you know, we're interested in being attracted to who we want to be attracted to, right? Whether you're a man or a woman, whether you're attracted to men or women or whoever, we want that. We want to look attractive. But what is it that makes specifically this concept of men looking at women as if they're physical objects? You know, how is this different than just wanting to look attractive to the opposite sex? The difference is it turns the woman in question to an object and not just a person that this other person wants to impress and be attracted to, right? The woman in question goes from becoming an individual with things about them, personality traits, quirks, things that they like, things that they dislike, to becoming this object to own. Almost like an accessory to this man's life. Becomes almost like a car or like a watch or like a shoe. But let's keep going into it. So the term male gaze originated from film culture and was used to describe the depiction of women in cinema as being sexual objects or objects of desire, not only for the males within the film itself, but also for the male viewers in the audience. Sometimes the concept of sexualizing women doesn't just end on the screen, it extends to all women and girls in real life as well. So it'll extend to me, right? I'll be viewed at like an object of desire or an object of sexualization and not Brianna. Because of these things, because women, straight women, right? Straight women want to appeal to straight men, obviously, they will themselves try to conform into this ideal woman for them, right? They'll try to conform into this sexual object, and they will sexualize themselves from a very young age so that they can be what they think men want them to be like. So as I mentioned before, the idea of the male gaze was first originated within cinema and film. It was first described by a British film theorist who was also a feminist named Laura Mulvey in an essay she wrote in 1973 titled Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. The essay that she wrote kind of detailed the way cinema portrays the female characters on screen as being seen through basically a straight male lens. How they're not so much characters as they are objects or props in the film. Their bodies are typically displayed in the camera at a certain way to show off their figure, to show off their hips or their booty or their busts or their legs in a way that really dehumanizes. And everything about these characters in these movies is designed to entice the male viewer, from the way they dress to the way they talk to the way they wear their hair to the way they look into the camera or look at the male leads. It's all very suggestive and used to invoke desire, not only from the male lead, like I said, but also from the male audience as well. Can I say also and as well in the same sentence? You get what I'm talking about. You know, when you see action movies, James Bond, whatever, Mission Impossible, any action movie, what happens at the end of the story? The guy gets the girl, right? She's the trophy, she's the reward for him going on this long journey. For the women who are in these roles, they're not on the same footing as the male actors, their male counterparts. They're just purely there to be motivation for the male character to do the things that he does. And seeing these things in cinema, it resonates with us as human beings. It changes the way that we view ourselves. It changes the way how we view others. So there are plenty examples of the male gaze in cinema. You see it in plenty of action movies where the female lead is just there to be sexy, just there to be attractive and just be desired, like Transformers, The Avengers. You see it in music culture all the time, how female singers or performers are often scantily clad, wearing very tight, clingy things, wearing high heels, lots of makeup, while their male counterparts are quite comfortable on stage in jeans and shirts that fit. There is definitely something to be said about, like, if a woman wants to dress that way, right? Now, if Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B want to go on stage half-ass naked and that's how they want to express themselves because that's how they feel inside, then that's great. That's perfect. That's on them, right? But if they feel like they have to do this because of the male audience that's watching, because they feel like they wouldn't have their attention otherwise, you know, that is definitely due to the male gaze, right? And you see this in rap videos all the time, rappers surrounded by girls. The purpose is just like when you see a rapper surrounded by a bunch of nice cars or by a bunch of jewelry, you know, or a bunch of shoes or a big ass house. The women in that video are objects. That's what they're there for. They're there to be objectified. You are supposed to. That is the intention. The intention is to say, hey guys, other men in the audience who are watching this, look at me. Look at all this stuff I have. Don't you want this stuff? Don't you want to be just like me? You even see the effects of the male gaze in cartoons. Just look at Jessica Rabbit, who I love, by the way. I love me some Jessica Rabbit. What about every anime you've probably ever seen, except for maybe Attack on Titan? I think everybody there is pretty reasonably looking. But every other anime is like they're doing fan service to their male fans. And the women are scantily clad, they're running around in the forest, they're running around in, I don't know, the desert or whatever, just barely wearing anything. I mean, just look at frickin' Kill La Kill. Like, honestly, that's why I never even wanted to watch that show, because I'm like, what the fuck is she wearing? And it pisses me off. It pisses me off. Honestly, that was the reason why I hated hated Seven Deadly Sins because I'm looking at the princess whose name I don't even remember anymore. It's been that long. It's been like a couple years since I've seen it. But I'm looking at the princess character and thinking about how she's completely useless and she has no purpose but to be there and to be the object for Meliodas, I remember his name, to save, to risk his life for, to fawn over, to win. And that's what we want to see, right? If you're a guy watching Seven Deadly Sins, you expect at the end that that is his prize. He's gonna get this princess who, frankly, I mean, if we're talking just purely physical, is way out of his league. I mean, he looks like a child. I don't know why the first thing that popped in my head was like, he's got a child dick. But then I was like, I don't want to say child dick, but there it is. That is what it is. I mean, there's a lot of problematic relationships in Seven Deadly Sins though, so let's just leave it. Let's just leave it right there. You also see this in cinema a lot. I'm sure you've heard this a lot, not even cinema, but just like film, TV, everything a lot, where you've got this unattractive man with this freaking bombshell of a woman. You see that a lot in cartoons. Look at Lois and Peter, Wilma and Fred. You know, look at TV, look at King of Queens. You know, look how much more attractive the wife from King of Queens is from the husband. It's funny, I'm trying to think of another show and I thought Roseanne and I was like, no, they did a good job with that one. But that was because a woman was in charge of that. Do you see what happens when a woman is in charge of a show? She didn't give herself a fine ass, sexy ass, buff dude. She gave herself a man that likely would be with a woman like her in real life. I could go on and on and on with all the examples that there are out there of the male gaze. So what does the male gaze cause? What does it put on women? What does it put on men? When people are objectified in this manner, it begins to affect the way that you see the world, the way you set your expectations, the way you set your personal worth and your personal value. And in my opinion, you end up getting things like incels because you create people that feel like they need this thing to have value. And it's unfortunate when this thing is another living, breathing human being with their own choices and desires and thoughts and feelings. But I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. Ultimately, the effects of the male gaze is that it causes people to denote their value for women based on their physical appearance and their bodies. I've heard a lot of men jokingly say things like, oh, it's always I've heard women say this too, it's always women who are like in the body positive movement, who are trying to make guys like these fat and ugly girls. You don't see men trying to force women to like them and they're fat and ugly. And it's like, I mean, men and women are straight men. Let's be specific. Straight men and straight women are interested in different things, and I'm gonna actually do another video after this one about the female gaze, which is a little different than the male gaze. It's very interesting. All is very interesting to talk about. But you can see here, just by me explaining this, you can see how it would be different. Men don't have these same expectations placed on them, not just by women in real life, but they don't have these expectations placed on them in cinema. I don't know if you watch David Spade in The Wrong Missy. He's got these freaking attractive girls, way more attractive than him, fawning after him. Or think of any single movie where the male actor is like damn near 50 and the female who is his love interest is in her 20s. That disgusts me. I don't think you understand how much that disgusts me. I love Tom Cruise. I love Tom Cruise so much with his crazy ass. I love him. But whenever he is in a movie, he's placed with a female protagonist, whoever he's working alongside, whatever woman, and she's like a million years younger than him. And I'm just like, why couldn't they find him an age appropriate woman? Why does she have to be so young all the time? But that's the thing, we're feeding into this fantasy, right? What do men want to see? They want to see hot young women on screen. Things that you see on TV and in cartoons even, those leach out into real life, right? Those things become a part of our culture, not just our movies, but they become a part of our culture, a part of our psyche. And I think they're missing the part that it's a fantasy. So how is the male gaze harmful for women? I would say definitely the main issue of the male gaze is that it's patriarchal in nature. nature, obviously, misogynistic in nature, clearly, placing women in an inferior position to men by making them be objects instead of individuals, even adding race into the equation. You know, the male gaze can harm specifically women of certain races, like black women are normally hypersexualized, while Asian women are fetishized. Lesbians are often fetishized. Is it fetishized or fetishized? And I mean, lesbians, obviously not all lesbians, right? But the lipstick lesbians, the ones who present as femme, who might be willing to let the man watch them or participate in some way. So obviously the worst part of the male gaze is how it dehumanizes women. And I just heard somebody say today that people don't like when people say that. And it makes me want to kind of go into what dehumanizing means. But I feel like I've said it so many times in this video by now, viewing women as objects of desire and not as people with thoughts, feelings, wants, desires, likes, dislikes. Yeah, that's wrong. Well, you know, viewing them as objects instead of people is wrong. I can't remember how I started that sentence because I did so much talking. And then you have the sexualization of young girls that ends up happening. Remember Cuties? These are some of the pictures from Cuties, and they make me uncomfortable as a woman. I have not seen it. I actually wanted to watch it for this video, but I completely forgot that I wanted to do that. But just based on these pictures alone, the idea of Cuties made sense to me. Like, I'm like, yeah, I was a little girl and I was kind of a sexual child. Like, I wasn't sexual, I wasn't having sex, obviously. I'm not even gonna say obviously, I don't know what these people out here be doing in these streets, but I wasn't having sex. But I did want to be sexy. I remember like when I was a little girl, I used to like do this on the playground, and I would like do this with my shirts so that obviously I was wearing nothing underneath, but I would like do it like that, and just so it covered my little non-existent boobs because I wanted to be like sexy. And me and my friend used to do that, and we had to be like, what, 7 years old, you know? But you see that also in girls that are a part of these dance competitions. Like, this is one of my favorite clips because this little girl can dance. This little girl can dance. She killed it. She killed it. There is definitely something in the pit of my stomach telling me like that this is wrong. I am all about people having free agency. You can do whatever you want to do. Your body is yours. But I guess we want to know, like, what's the reason? Do you want to dance like this because you saw somebody dance like this and you liked it? Or are you dancing like this because you know that it's sexy, and as a woman, as a female, as a girl, society has told you that it's your job to be sexy? That's how I felt. I definitely felt like it was my job to be sexy. But that's just me. Not everybody feels like that. Not everybody feels like me. Everybody feels differently, but there is evidence to show that young girls do feel like that. They do feel that pressure to be sexy from a very young age. We're starting to see more and more of that today via social media, of young girls having these Instagrams and TikTok accounts where they're showing off their bodies in revealing ways and in just kind of ways that just seem too mature. Things that I certainly wasn't doing at their age. I mean, I guess I was doing that shirt tie thing. Maybe if social media was available when I was a kid growing up, that would have been different. There seems to be like a line, like, where does you go girl feel empowered stop and being objectified start? I feel like that's what the men who are watching this, who are just kind of not convinced, that's probably what they're thinking. Like, well, what about women who want to dress like that? They want to be seen, they want to be objectified. Where does the line stop? I can't tell you. Everybody's different. Everybody's line starts and stops at different places. That's something that you have to be respect. If it stops there at being seen, that does not mean that you have the right to touch her. That doesn't mean that you have the right to pinch her ass as she's walking by in the club in a short skirt, which has happened to me so many times, or that you have the right to touch her in an inappropriate way when she is inebriated. That's happened to me before. That's just being a decent person, in my opinion. Even if you put yourself in a shitty predicament, the moment somebody takes advantage of your shitty predicament, they become the one that's in the wrong. And I saw this post that said, what if all the male characters posed like the female one in the Avengers poster? And it's hilarious. That's so funny. Why they got Hulk grabbing his ass like that? But I love it. How do you feel? How do you feel, men? Would you like if all of your pictures were like this? So how does the male gaze hurt men? It's something I definitely want to talk about. I guess specifically, I'm going to be talking about straight men, even though I'm sure there's something to be said about the male gaze's effect on gay men. I know, especially in the gay community, physical attraction and your physical appearance is make or break for a lot of people in that community. But I'm not in the gay community, well, not the gay man community, so I don't want to speak on that as a woman. I think that for straight men, it really shortchanges their experiences with women in general. I've said this before, but like, instead of viewing a woman as a whole complete person with free agency, she's viewed as like a prize, an award, a trophy, a possession. I think for men, if they don't have this type of woman that looks this way or portrays herself in this way, then they feel like a failure. When I think of incels, that's what I think. I think, oh no, they've become victim to the male gaze. They've fallen victim to thinking that physicality matters, which, I mean, I guess in our very visual society it does, but that's not the best thing. But I think that the male gaze teaches men that if they don't have this certain type of woman with a nice face, nice breasts, nice hair, then that diminishes their value as a human being, and that's just not true. It can also be harmful to men because they'll end up trying to choose a partner based on superficial reasons instead of chemistry and compatibility and mutual attraction, not as some arm candy that society tells them that they should want. I was watching a video from another YouTuber today. Her name is Khadija Mbowe. I don't know if I pronounced it right. I've never heard her say her last name out loud, but I thought she brought up some good points in her video about the male gaze. I watched a ton of videos about the male gaze, so if it sounds like I'm repeating some stuff other people are saying, it might have gotten stuck in my psyche. I'm sorry, I can't help it. But she brought up a good point about the male gaze and sexual access, and how the women who are portraying this sexual fantasy in movies and music videos are then expected to put out to their male counterparts even once the camera's no longer rolling. And she also mentioned something that I think a lot of my more conservative homies might struggle with, which is just because you are dressed in a sexy way doesn't mean that you're inviting somebody to have sex with you. I feel like that should be obvious, but I feel like it needs to be said to someone. So even in cases where the male gaze is not physically dangerous, it can still pose a huge threat for a woman's mental health, especially in today's world of social media and Instagram and seeing picture after picture after post of these very sexualized female bodies, feeling like you need to conform to that, like you feel like you need to look like that. It makes me really grateful for the body positivity movement. Being subjected to the male gaze on a regular basis can cause a lot of women and girls to have an increase of anxiety, depression, eating disorders, thoughts of self-harm, and general low self-esteem. There was actually, very interestingly, a 2014 study titled Fathers, Daughters, and Self-Objectification, Does Bonding Style Matter? I'm glad I read that because that was a lot of words in my mouth for a title. But this study showed that there was a link between girls who grew up with a overprotective father and eating disorders, and said that the attention that these fathers were giving to their daughters' changing bodies was affecting the way they viewed themselves and affecting their eating patterns, which is interesting. I honestly thought when I read that it would actually help women to love their bodies more. But I guess if there's a man in the house, you got to be subjected to the male gaze. So I guess that's just how it works. I wouldn't know. I had a single parent until I was 15. I grew up with just my mom, so I don't know. Maybe that's why I was so vain. But I also said this. My grandmother told me I was beautiful every single day of my life that she saw me. So I didn't really start having doubts about my body until when I was 14. That's when I started first having doubts about my body, when I first started growing boobs. So I guess that just happens when you start going through puberty. I guess technically I started growing boobs when I was 12. Yeah, I cared about my body when I was 12. So could there ever be a positive side to the male gaze? Obviously, if a woman is dressing in a way that's provocative, sexy, wearing very little clothing, wearing very tight clothing, and they want to, they have the complete autonomy to do that. Completely. We live in a free country. You can look however you want to look. There might be some spoken or unspoken social rules, but you can wear whatever you want. You can look however you want, wear as much or as little makeup as much as you want. You know, obviously you don't want to show your bare ass to the world, but you can wear as much or as little clothes as you want. But I guess it would behoove some people, some women, to want to really look into why. I'll say this. I wear makeup for my YouTube videos, and It's not for the male gaze, because I actually didn't know that men were watching my channel. I actually had no intention of men watching my channel when I started my channel. I really just kind of wanted to be like a big sister to younger girls on here. But I will say, a lot of the girls that I did follow wore makeup. A lot of the girls I followed wore makeup, and I noticed that like when the girls didn't wear makeup, I don't know if it was like the pretty privilege thing kicking in, but I mean, if I like somebody, I'm gonna watch them whether they're wearing makeup or not. Like I watch Cat Black, and sometimes Cat Black wears makeup and sometimes she doesn't. I watch Madison Brown, and sometimes Madison Brown wears makeup and sometimes she doesn't. But I feel like it gets somebody to stick a lot easier when their face looks more visually appealing. Also, I tried not wearing makeup in a couple of my earlier videos, and I just look like a freaking washed out ghost. Like I didn't like it. As far as black people go, I'm a pale person, and when I wasn't wearing makeup, I just felt like I looked so icky. I don't know. Woo, I love my baby hairs. They're babying in the hair. I love them. I love them. Okay, let me stop. I'm starting to annoy myself. It's super cringy, right? As I was saying, you know, like you want to think about the reasons for why. Do I feel subjected to the male gaze? Yes and no. I have felt subjected to the male gaze my entire life. I felt that for a very, very long time. I think it started to dissolve as I got older. After my first major boyfriend when I was 25, something changed in me because of the female gaze, which we'll talk about in my next video. I had certain desires that I wanted in a partner. And once I felt like those desires were met enough in this person, and then I was shown that he was imperfect and obviously a terrible person. He was physically abusive to me. It just kind of made me think like, people are just people. I'm a person, he's a person, we're all flawed in our own ways. Do I still want to look attractive to men? To the men that I want to look attractive to? You know, like I don't want to look attractive to each and every man. And personally, I like to be looked at in a positive way just by anybody. Like I'm going to a Halloween party this weekend. I'm vaccinated, okay? So don't worry, I'm not gonna be doing nothing dangerous. But I'm going to a party and I just want to look good to impress anybody who's there. I don't care if a freaking dog is there. I want that dog to look at me and go, damn. You know, that's just how I want to be looked at. I don't know if it's because my moon is in Leo. Now that we know what the male gaze is, now that we know that it can be potentially harmful for both men and women, what are we gonna do about it? We, you and me, us as a society, a collection. I was almost a spoken word there for a second. But what can we do, you know? I guess first things first, knowledge is power. Once you know something, you can't unknow it unless you forget it, I guess. But now that you know what the male gaze is, and because I've just gone through this whole video and hopefully you listened, now that you know it's a thing, it's up to you as an individual to actively work against it or actively work to change it. Watch, absorb content, movies, film, whatever, that does not display women as these brainless stereotypes, that doesn't just relegate the woman to the role of the caretaker, the object of passion, this thing to be obtained. You know, watch things that give women a real voice, that give women a real personality. For women, I would just say let go. Let go of this need to feel like you need to fit into this box of what men in society and our culture and our TV and whatever tells you that you should be. And only by doing that are you going to be able to become the person that you want to be. Does that make sense? So my final thoughts, it's funny because like I've been doing myself through the male gaze for my whole life. And it's funny because I view my romantic partners through the female gaze, and I don't know why, I just think that's really funny. It's like I was mentally aware how men viewed me while viewing them the way that females view men, and it's funny. I don't know why, that's just hilarious to me. But I don't know, my thoughts are that I feel so much more empowered just for knowing that the male gaze exists, because I thought I was feeling like I was going crazy, you know. I felt like there was this internal pressure and I didn't know where it was coming from, and I felt like I wasn't doing stuff right. I'm not a super girly girl. I would rather wear obviously a sweatshirt than like a super top, like you know, I'm wearing this sweatshirt over like a more sexy, I guess, top. But that's just me. Sometimes, that's not me all the time. Sometimes I like looking sexy and I like looking like a bad bitch, and that's my choice. And sometimes I like looking like a bad bitch in order to look more sexually desirable to somebody that I want to look like a bad bitch to, and that's my prerogative. I get to do what I want to do with my body. you know? But I do have male friends that kind of get on my nerves with the stereotypes that they try to place on me. They can tell stories about their farts and they can tell their own poop jokes, but as soon as I try to tell one where I let one rip, they're like, oh, I don't want to hear about a girl farting. I have male friends, specifically this group of male friends. I took a break from friendship with them for a very long time. They feel like it's their right, that they're entitled to tell women when they're not pleasing them visually. They feel like they can tell a woman like, why are you wearing that? I was told that my boobs were saggy. Maybe they are, I don't know. Hey yo, everybody I've ever been with done like them, so I mean, it's funny, the people complaining about them are the people who ain't even never seen them, you know? But just the fact that they felt like it was okay to tell me that. Like, it's funny how much like I won't tell them things. I couldn't imagine making somebody feel the way they make me feel when they say things like that. I can't imagine it. But they're all very misogynistic, very sexist, wanting to have a woman that does specific roles. I was actually having this conversation, me and one of my friends who's coming over in a little bit, have been watching like all of the Marvel movies. And something that I've noticed as I've gone through each of the Marvel movies is how freaking boring and vapid the female characters are. Black Widow does not have a personality. I know somebody out there is gonna try to pretend like she does or try to explain to me that her being serious and sexy is part of her personality, and I'm like, well, she can get in line behind all these other freaking female protagonists where being serious and being sexy was their personality. That was my issue with X-Men and why I didn't like Jean Grey. I hated her because I was like, why are all these dudes fawning over this girl who has no personality? Like, I didn't read the comics. I don't know how she actually is in the comics, but I know in the movies she wears tight clothes and gives her sultry looks and gives her little smirks, and all the guys want to fuck her for some reason. And I guess that is why she had a whole third movie. I thought that was why that movie sucked. I'm like, you based an entire movie around one of the most boring characters in this whole thing. Like, maybe if you had bothered to give this woman a personality. Even Storm's character had no personality. If you think about it, all the women in X-Men were either caretakers like Storm, they were beautiful and smart but quiet. Like, I keep wanting to call her Famke because that's her name in real life, but like Jean Grey, or they needed to be saved like Rogue. None of these women were important. And then, you know, I gotta take it to Mystique. What was she supposed to be? Sexy. This girl is wearing no clothes. She's supposed to be sexy. That was her role in the movie, was for you to go, damn, I fucked that blue chick. That was her role in the movie. I'm sorry, I could go off on a whole tirade about how dirty Marvel has done female characters and how they've not bothered to give any of them real personalities. That's why I didn't even see Captain Marvel, because I'm like, it doesn't even look like she has a personality based on the trailer. Like, that's why I didn't want to see Black Widow. I'm like, it doesn't look like she has a personality. I don't know. Change my mind. Come on, in the comments, change my mind. Tell me if any of the Marvel female characters have personalities within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I only care about MCU. I don't care about the comics, and I don't care about TV shows, okay? Try to change my mind. Scarlet Witch, she was like boring. They're all boring. Give me one that's not boring. One. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to say with this. I'm not gonna lie, I made this video pretty fast. I wrote everything pretty fast. I had kind of been doing some research before. I'm glad that I did it. I really enjoy talking about stuff like this. Like I said, next video is gonna be on the female gaze, which is slightly different than the male gaze. I honestly want, if you're a person who identifies as an incel who's watching this, which I got a couple of those ever since I made my femcel video, please watch the next one I make on the female gaze so you can understand exactly what you're missing when it comes to attracting women. Because I realize that I have been putting the female gaze on all of the guys I've ever liked, been ever interested in. Every guy, every man in my life, I put the female gaze on them. I put them under that microscope, and I don't look at them as an individual person, or at least I wasn't, but now that I'm aware of it, I'm definitely gonna change. You know, I have to. Please let me know what you think down below. Let me know what you think about the male gaze. Do you think the male gaze is a real thing? I know that a lot of men, and there's some women out there who whose videos I saw on YouTube, actually, a couple of men's rights women that I saw when I was doing research for this video, who think that the male gaze is phooey and it's just people being attracted to other people and people should just get over it and it's not that big of a deal. Let me know how you think in the comments. Also, don't forget to give this video a like to let the algorithm know that I am relevant, okay? Because if you don't think I'm relevant, neither will the algorithm. You know what I mean? Also, definitely subscribe to my channel to see more content like this. I love making videos like this. I love responding to you in the comments. But that's all for today. I will see you next time. Peace.